An Illinois woman pleading guilty to federal labor trafficking charges. She's accused of keeping 33 people from Guatemala in her basement under threat. The woman, a U.S. citizen who came here from Guatemala, says she's been helping people get into the U.S. illegally for 10 years, even providing them with fake IDs. She now faces 20 years behind bars. Joining me now is National Border Patrol Council President Brandon Judd. Brandon, thanks for being with us. You know, this is so heartbreaking what this woman did. It's despicable, it's criminal, but how prevalent is labor trafficking in the U.S.?
It's extremely prevalent. Immigration officers like myself, we have to deal with this on a daily basis. We see people being trafficked into the United States, not just for labor, not just for indentured servitude as far as paying money going into sweatshops, but we see sex trafficking on a regular basis as well. This is the underbelly of all crime, and it breaks immigration officers' hearts to see the human misery that's inflicted upon these people simply because our liberal politicians refuse to enforce our immigration laws. Instead, they treat them as mere suggestions.
You know, Brandon, I want to ask you about another story that's in the news. People near the Calexico border in the south tossing over to the U.S. packages of crystal meth. What does that tell you about the constructed barriers, the walls and fences?
Well, it's interesting because I started my career in this particular area, in the El Centro, Calexico area. And when I started my career, we had very few physical barriers, very few walls, and drugs flowed across the border like water. It was very easy to get drugs across. They have to resort to extraordinary measures to try to get their drugs across right now, simply because the Trump administration is enforcing the laws. They're building the barriers that allows Border Patrol agents to be a lot more successful in dictating where illegal crossings take place. As long as we can continue to force criminal cartels to take extraordinary measures, we can cut down on the drugs that are coming into the United States.
Yeah, so the walls work in your judgment, and who knows better than you since that's your career. I do want to ask you about the indictment. And there, by the way, on the screen, I mean, that just gives you an idea, the drug seizures. But I want to ask you about the two former heads of the Mexican Federal Police Force. They have been indicted essentially taking bribes to help the cartels. I mean, this is pretty discouraging if you're U.S. law enforcement and Mexican law enforcement as well, right?
Well, one of the most difficult things that we have to deal with is we have to create partnerships with countries to try to help us combat illegal drug smuggling, illegal alien smuggling, sex trafficking, all of these different things that come across the border. And when we find out that federal police are in bed with the cartels, it makes it a lot more difficult for us to be able to trust what's happening in other countries, to trust the information that we're getting, and it also makes it a lot more difficult to stop this traffic. That's, again, we go back and we look at what President Trump did and the pressure that he put on the Mexican government and the crackdowns that we have seen because of that pressure. As long as that pressure continues, we will be able to win this war on drugs. But we got to put the requisite pressure on the Mexican government to do the right thing.
Yeah, we absolutely do. So give us a status update on the successes and failures where we are currently at the southern border.
We've seen in 4 years, we've seen historic lows on 2 separate occasions, not just once, but on 2 separate occasions. And what that tells you is that policies being put in place right now are in fact working. Getting out in front of the pandemic, COVID-19, enacting Title 42, allowing us to immediately return people back to Mexico and to other countries. It's allowing us to do our job the best that we can and cut down on illegal immigration and illegal border crossings.
Are people, though, successfully, and we were looking at pictures a moment ago, you know, are they successfully scaling the fence? How much of a deterrent have these walls been?
If you look at where there's not walls, again, I'll go back to my early career in both Arizona and California. We were arresting groups that were crossing the border in groups of 150. Right now, you might see 1, 2s, 3s scale the wall. It's very small numbers. It's just not like it was. We have to have those physical barriers, and the walls do work.
Brandon Judd, great talking to you. Thanks so much for the update.